got into a debate the other day with a believer. It was on epistemology. And
we're sorry.
Yeah. Seeing how I can word this, but his claim was that since there's a bunch of presuppositions to science that we can't really know for sure if science is the truth, which I agreed with him, but he was pretty much equating that religious claims that relies on faith is equal to science claims, which he thinks is also relied on faith as well. And I responded. I guess I'll get your guys' opinion on how you would take on that kind of argument.
Well, I have sort of two ways to approach it. I'll just hit one, and maybe Russell will pick up the other one.
Okay.
Science gives us a lot of stuff. It gives us a lot of technology. It enables things like roofs over our head and air conditioning and all these things. And to a very large extent, technology is the fruit of science. It is the thing that science gives us. And if you want to throw that all away and say, well, this faith is, if it's all on faith, then this stuff that we have has no value or whatever, is false or something, right? It is unsubstantiated, right? And so, I would wager with this person, live a year without any technology whatsoever, and I'll live a lifetime without religion, and let's see who lives.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that's one way. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He was pretty much like, he was saying that, like, how would we know if our brain is faulty and we're coming to conclusions on these scientific, claims.
Science is a process, and it accounts for things like the fact that we are fallible and we have limited senses and these sorts of things, and we can build up processes that guard against those sorts of problems. Like peer review is a good example of that. It's not just one person making a claim about the universe. It's a bunch of people have to sort of make sure that the claim makes sense. And and nearly everything in science can be replicated by other people, and it's valid science to do that replication, or to do it and decide, hey, this original finding was wrong, and that happens all the time. And we grow and learn, and despite our fallible nature, we have a process that gives us a very good understanding of the universe and how it works.
Right. I think like a key difference is that basically faith encourages people to look inward. So when you're asking yourself, there's a thing that I think I know, but how can I be sure it's true? Well, if I really, 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 really believe it, then it's definitely true, because that's what faith means, pretty much, right?
Right. From our perspective, a faith is a good way to be wrong, right? It's believing things without proper evidence.
It's a good way to be very satisfied with being wrong.
Yes, and not inhibiting yourself from getting to the right answer.
Right. And the idea of skepticism in general is, not that you're a curmudgeon who just believes the opposite of what everybody else believes, but that basically you don't take stuff on faith. You don't assume that your confidence level is good enough to establish a fact as true. You treat seriously the idea that you yourself might be wrong, and so you go around asking, how would I know if I'm wrong? What way could I distinguish from a right answer from a wrong answer?
Yeah, and this is work, right? I mean, taking this attitude is hard work,
and it's uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas in faith, you can be very comfortable and you can be smug and be a know-it-all and be done and not have to waste any effort on this stuff.
And a lot of people who do think that science and faith are the same thing have this mistaken attitude about science because they're projecting what they're familiar with onto it. So they think, oh, well, you just worship Einstein or Carl Sagan or whoever.
Yeah, as if we have to worship something, right?
Right. And so if that guy says a thing, then you just believe that guy. But that's not how it works. We assume that any of them could be wrong, and we look at their methods and figure out, like, it's not good enough to try an experiment and then say, oh, my experiment proves I'm right. You have to define the experiment in a way that other people can do it. And if other people try to do the same thing as you and they fail, then you have to be honest with yourself and say, oh, well, it looks like the experiment wasn't very well defined, or I was jumping to a conclusion that wasn't warranted, so I'm wrong. That's the main difference.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Back to the N-word thing that you said, though, because I think that point was kind of crucial to what I was trying to say, is he was pretty much saying that there was no knowledge outside of, like, our brain, and that it all comes back to ourself. Yeah. And I know that's a very common, like, kind of like apologist, I guess, type of way to go about how we know things.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
You also have to remember to draw a distinction between knowing something, which is sort of a process of the mind, like belief and knowledge are things that happen in your mind. But then there is the subject of the knowledge, which is the stuff that you know about. And that stuff isn't inward. The point of learning things scientifically is to make the information that's modeled in your brain more or less match the things that are going on outside your brain. Because it matters whether the things you believe map to things in the real world and not just, not just all solipsistic inward stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always go back to, like, I've read, like, a lot of existentialist type philosophy, and they've always said that the only thing we can really be sure of is Descartes, I think, therefore I am, and then everything else is kind of inductive. I mean, there's also there's the deductive.
Descartes also said a whole lot of bullshit after that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a solipsist. Like, you have to kind of remain neutral on that. But I guess I kind of used that in the argument with this believer, and I think it got me into like a sort of like a weird kind of wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, I do think you want to be careful, because you can't absolutely ever 100% prove that you're not a figment of the Red King's dream.
Right. It's an unfalsifiable presupposition, and that's kind of what he used against me to like further his argument.
Right.
So I think that was sort of.
Luckily, I mean, philosophers usually don't think that knowledge has to represent absolutes. It can just be the best possible position given the information that we already know. I mean,
exactly,
even if you're living in a simulation, unless you know the way to get out of the simulation, there's a lot of stuff that's factual about the world that you think you live in. So you may as well treat that as real.
If you're arguing over the internet, presumably this person thinks that computers exist, and that his keyboard exists, and these sorts of things. And anyway, hopefully you can ground it there.
How is he to say that the devil isn't intercepting every message you send him and then changing all your messages to be the exact opposite of what you said?
Theism is got a little bit of solipsism, right? In that you live in this sort of made up place. God sort of makes this stuff up, and you're supposedly living at it, and maybe it was made 6,000 years ago, and it's all the history is just faked, and these sorts of things, and it's all compatible with religious belief.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I think that pretty much cleared up what I was wanting to ask. So thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Daniel.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good day.